talking about the split of attention, yo, let us talk about the NRL Las Vegas, as we like to call it. NRL Las Vegas, where for the first time ever, the National Rugby League found their way over to USA territory to sign a 5-year deal to play games in Las Vegas at Allegiant Stadium, which is amazing. This year, it was definitely one that I feel like it was a mixed feeling, but it was a good start in a sense. So kind of right off the bat, like off rip, like the game brought in 40,000 people to the crowd. I have friends that were out there from Roots Rugby. Shout out to Kyle Granby being able to represent USA Rugby League as USA against Canada out there. Shout out to Great American Rugby, Lance Kavanaugh, for being able to be a VIP representative over at that. Looking at their videos and stories, like the game looked like it was like legit dope. Like it was a great environment, something that people really were able to connect into. And again, if you guys realize, like Allegiant Stadium is really only like 60,000, I think 61, 62,000 people. So you basically had an 80% full crowd. Yeah, 80% full crowd inside that stadium, whether they came from Australia or not. Like that's a really good outcome that comes with it. Negative side, on the other hand, though, is that the TV crowd was none too impressive. From what they said was the numbers, it was 61,000 viewers watched the Rabbitohs versus Manly Sea Eagles, South Sydney Rabbitohs versus the Manly Sea Eagles, and then it dropped to 44,000 viewers for the Sydney Roosters versus the Brisbane Broncos. So, like, definitely a mixed bag, but I do think there's an explanation to it. But I'm gonna go into it at the end of this. So let's kind of go over what the scores were for this. First off, you had the Manly Sea Eagles, who, as my friend calls them, Hugh Jackman's team, versus the South Sydney Rabbitohs, team of famously of Russell Crowe, who ended up winning. Sea Eagles ended up winning the game 36-34. To be able to get the first ever NRL win on U.S. soil. I think the Rabbitohs scored first, but apparently, as I'm understanding it, the elitists of the Manly Sea Eagles were able to take it overall. Very interesting match. I looked at watch the highlights initially for it, and I was like, the tackling sucks. But as I got to watch a full game later on, that's active on YouTube, or I guess maybe on Fox Sports if you're outside the country, or if you're inside the USA, was solid, was much better. I think there's still a lot for me to learn when it comes to rugby league to be able to pick it, but it was a solid matching. And then the other game was, like I said, the South Sydney Roosters versus the Brisbane Broncos, and the Broncos, who actually were in the championship game last year trying to make up and lost a nail biter against the Panthers. They ended up losing this opening game 20-10 against a good Roosters team. I'm not gonna lie, the first half was absolutely horrendously boring to me. 8-4 score is a wild score to have at halftime on so many levels. Again, the scoring was a little bit janky for me, as I'm used to 5-2, not like 4-4 or 4-3, and depending on what it is, it was confusing. But it got better in the second half and more scoring, and it amped up. Like I said, I thought it was very interesting to be able to watch. I think it was a good showing. I don't worry as much about the TV ratings as of right now. Well, number one, it being on Fox Sports, while I know that that's because their partners in Australia, it's Fox Sports, and Rupert Murdoch and company have been doing it, and then it eventually went to FS2. Like, number one, FS1 and FS2 are special cable channels here in the US, so it's not something that people typically have. It's not part of your basic cable package like it would be if it was an ESPN or so like that. And number two, the timing was difficult, man. When you're talking about the West Coast time, the people that are living in Australia are dealing with a time that is almost 12, 13 hours behind them. So they're if the game started at like 8 o'clock, you're talking about, 6, 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, maybe even later, even earlier than that, for both of the games. So obviously they took it out, though the Australian numbers were actually really good. I think they did 800,000 from that. But from the U.S. numbers, which is what those ones I said, the 61,000 and the 44,000, the U.S. numbers actually, again, hit for one, the split of the weekend. Number two, I think majority of the fans that would have watched the game probably went to the game. So you're talking about those 40,000. Well, they're at the game. So that's a nice trade-off. I think when it comes to a monetary output, you want the in-stadium to be better than the TV. Let the TV be able to grow with time. And then in terms of like access, again, Fox Sports and Fox Sports 1 is not your normal cable channel. Like, who are we trying to fool? Like, it's not. Every time we put games on there, I'm just like, they don't have it on, they have it on streaming, but you got to have a cable, channel. I guess if you have YouTube TV, it helps, but I think that limits it quite a bit. I won't knock the marketing. I think NRL actually did a fantastic job in marketing this and doing a good lead up between, we talked about the NFL showing that they did for the Minnesota Vikings versus Raiders game a few months ago. Obviously, they got billboards up in New York. They've been doing a lot within the Las Vegas and that region and the community. So to be able to get what they did, I think it's fantastic. And for once, I don't think the TV numbers are bad. Even if you look at their YouTube page where the NRL posted the full games, like the games themselves already got like 26, 30,000 views just alone from people who missed it. So I don't think the numbers are going to be a worry. As this 5-year deal continues on, I think that's going to be where they need to really start to cultivate that showing. I will say that I would have expected a bigger opening. I think probably the in-stadium was probably more entertaining than the TV broadcast was. But I would say make the TV like the same criticism I have for Miami, I would have said that the NRL needed to do for the TV broadcast. That being said, the energy that they presented on the field was fantastic. Was absolutely fantastic. I give them credit for that one. I'm not going to take anything away from them. I'm not an NRL I'm not a rugby league person. I'm just trying to learn. So anything that can be done to be able to make me actually go watch the game, I'm going to figure and suggest. I don't know if it's universal, but this is my thoughts on it. All right, let's go with it. But yeah, I do think. Let me know what you guys' thoughts are. Like, I know a lot of rugby union fans are not rugby league fans, and we all have our biases against rugby league. I'm trying to unwind my brainwashed biases simply because of the fact that, one, I know the history of rugby league, and it really wasn't built on malice. It was built on something that was absolutely necessary and needed. And on the flip side of it, I also have to take away some of the bias that I feel like I have for it because it removes things like the scrums. Obviously, you don't have engaged scrums. The 5 downs to try is an interesting concept. The scoring is very different. It really is a different game, in my opinion, and it needs to present itself that. I think the terminology rugby, while it does make sense, it throws it off, but let me know what you guys' thoughts are with it. Like, how did you guys feel like the NRL Las Vegas opening did? How did you guys feel like the energy was for it if you got a chance to see it? And if you didn't, let me know in the comments. Why did you not watch it? Like, why were you not interested in checking it out for that? So I love to be able to know more about what you guys are thinking on this.